Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to the live stream for this week. I'm here with brother Hugo.
Thank you, brother Alexander. Hi everyone, real pleasure to be here. We'll start very immediately with a quick presentation, a retrospective of the major hit game of last year. It's not the one that were specifically the most successful, but it's the ones that
Hey guys, how's it going?
were innovative and that were created in a specific way that was perfect to generate innovation. I'll let Alexander start right away.
Cool. Yeah, so basically last week, Corentin and Thomas talked about ideation as and smart prototyping as a new way of thinking of your next prototypes to make sure that your future prototypes, in your future prototypes, you minimize the amount of time that you're spending on the number of prototypes, basically improving your conversion rate, right? That's a huge focus for us to make sure that you guys prototype for the right games. And part of that is just going over some of the prototypes from last year and just showing you how the idea evolved into a major hit. So to start off, going way back, we wanted to talk about Fire Up, which was, as you know, like a 2D game that worked super well in kind of the aftermath of Snake versus Block. Here, the studio wanted to make a shooting game that it was inspired by Snake versus Blocks, but that went further in a way. And the initial prototype didn't have this, but by adding something very simple, which was an incremental feature in the game, we were able to build that sense of progression of the player getting better, and this was very much inspired by kind of RPG games. And applied to hyper casual, along with kind of mixing gameplays between a shooter and a runner. And super successful. It stays a simple game, but it combines a lot of different ingredients that worked very well. Another prototype that we tested and that worked very well, as you guys know, was Bumper.io. This was very much at the beginning of the IO trend. So looking back at the middle of the year, the inspiration for Bumper was that the studio definitely wanted to make an IO game. They had seen early versions of Whole, and they also wanted to combine that with kind of a non-violent battle royale type, like Fortnite. But then the idea is, how do we combine that into a hyper-casual game? And then once we've built that, how do we improve the metrics? So once the idea was put together, the publishing manager and the studio worked super hard on improving the stats of the game, and part of that was adding juicy bits like the bumper in the back. So you shoot other bumpers, in the right place, and you get it perfect, and you feel powerful, and you expel them from the terrain. And another key important aspect, and you have it a bit in Whole, but a bit less, is snowballing. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the idea there, as you guys know by now, is making sure that the progression, that you're feeling progression even in an IO game by representing visually the growth of your character, if you're performing well, but also more in details. As you get bigger, the map seems smaller, so you have to accelerate the players as well. It's also present in Whole, but that made a huge impact on Bumper.io as well.
One thing I want to add on Bumper is, in terms of ideation process, what Guillaume did, the creator of Bumper, what he did is he saw Whole.io and he said, okay, I want to do a .io game now. I see the Battle Royale type of game that is really, really good. I want to do one. And compared to a lot of tests and prototypes that we've received, he did something really, really different from Whole.io in terms of core mechanic. Because he wanted to innovate, So I think this is a really good example to follow. When you find a game that you really like and that is really successful, try to figure out what exactly is fun into this game and how you can differentiate from it in order to be successful and to create a hit.
Yeah. Cool. So then one last case study from my side is you guys have seen, I think, this case study before on Fireballs. The game actually came to us as a 2D game that you see on the left here, with just this kind of spaceship-looking thing shooting balls into a circle. And the CPIs and the retention were nowhere close to what you see on the right-hand side. But we could see that there was a juicy mechanic, and that's really what the publishing manager Thomas and the studio also saw is that while the game doesn't necessarily have the stats, there is a lot of thought that went into the actual mechanic, making sure that you reward success, that you take risks, that you shoot near the obstacles to go faster in the game, and that's something that carried through the three images that you see. The second step in the game, though, was taking it to a 3D model, and we know today that 2D is super hard to nail 2D, much harder than it is 3D for the same kind of game. And so the first step to reduce the CPI, increase the retention, was to go 3D. And the studio did an amazing job at executing and doing that transition. But the game wasn't quite there yet. The result was on the right. Once you introduce a bigger sense of progression, pulling the player in from platform to platform and feeling like they're getting closer to the level end, that adds a lot of retention. It also helps your CPI with a feeling of evolving through a universe rather than just stagnating like in picture 1 or 2. So I guess the lesson here is try to focus on the mechanic first. Then we can apply a story, we can apply more polish, better graphics, do the transition. The most important thing is really getting that juicy mechanic and then following through.
Yeah, transition from, if you're stuck in the creation process, just go from 2D to 3D. Simple as that. There is a theory, I don't know if it's true, but at least it helps us a lot in terms of driving the creativity. And this theory is that maybe hyper-casual gaming is following the global history of gaming. And right now we would be at the very mid-age of the Nintendo 64, where we are still having gameplays that are 2D gameplays, but applied to a to a 3D art style. Maybe future will be 3D gameplays, like when you can move into the 3 direction into the game and interact into the game. Just a thought about it. Okay, so. One way to find new ideas is also the retro gaming. So the game that you are seeing right now on the screen is called Pong. I think it was released on the Mitchell console, which was really, really old. And the funny story is that this Mitchell console was very oftenly found in pizzerias. So while you were waiting for your pizza, there were no Uber Eats at the time, and while you were waiting for a pizza, you could play this game. So this is really, really the ancestor of hyper-casual gaming. And this is something that the studio was really clever to identify and created Ball Blast. So as you can see, the concept is exactly the same, but what they did, which is really fun, really, really interesting and really smart, is to add an incremental features in order to increase the engagement. So what we should get out of it is first the ideation technique of going into the retro gaming and find out which game to reproduce or to get really inspired by. And then one thing important is do not just stick to that, but add something more. The final point would be that this game is really at the frontier of hyper-casual gaming because it's very masculine, it involves guns, you have a huge metagame into the game and it's a metagame that is not just skins or stuff like that, it's really metagames that is linked to the gameplay with the incremental features that improve your guns, etc. So we recommend highly to go into the retro gaming to find out gameplays. Stick to a gameplay similar to Ball Blast is a bit risky because it's really at the frontier of hyper-casual. Then we have Paper 2. Huge hit, sequel. So the first remark is that we don't think that the sequel has any kind of power. Actually, it's not because it's named Paper.io 2 that it performed well. It could have been called Cutix or something like this. It would have been exactly the same. What is really interesting about that game is how it was made. It was made by our internal team of Montpellier. And what they did is that they took their time. They really took their time to make this game well. And actually, they had a lot of struggle on the technique parts, creating this cutting effect with a lot of calculation and creating it was really bug generator. So what we need to get here is that do not hesitate to take your time when you are on a good idea. You thought a lot about the game. You made a first little prototype that was fun, that it is fun, and you keep playing on it. do not hesitate to tackle the technical challenge. It's really important. A little bit similar, and it's a little bit a resume of all the techniques that we said earlier. There is baseball void. So the ideation technique comes directly from Burrito Bison, which is a 2D game. The guys from Chipworks decided to do it in 3D. Really good idea. Also, they make it quite fast in 2 weeks, but still they took their time to make it well. So they took their time and they used the Unity Asset Store in order to move really fast and to have a really bright and casual progression. They use also the incremental progression directly linked to the gameplay. It's something that is quite old right now, so we won't recommend to use it. But still, at that time, it really increased the KPIs of the game. So that's it for the retrospective. A lot of people are asking for potential trends currently on the market. It's not something we are pretty convinced about, but this is the thing we can see right now. And basically, the trend would be crowd of 3D object moving, just like Road City or the last game, Color Bump, that was released. Right now, Unity allows you to do that, and it's linked also to the satisfying video that you can, where you usually find inspiration. Right now, we can see that we have Road City, which is a .io game. Color Bump is a runner. Maybe there is some other room, still some room in the runner area with another idea linked to a crowd of 3D objects moving in the space. Might also be worth to try an endgame, for example, where you are shooting on an object moving, or I don't know. Maybe try to find something out of it. That's it, guys. Thank you very much. So, we are back on track. Now we'll do the Q&A. Brother Alexander.
Cool. Thanks, really, Hugo, for that in-depth analysis. Guys, we're going to go through some of these questions. If you can think of maybe more content-driven questions and substantive things, we're always working on the dashboard on clarifying that in the back end. But the live stream is more for like in-depth questions about actual content in games. But we did.
Yeah, just to answer all there are a lot of questions about why some games are still in pending testing, why there are some problems on the dashboard. Just like last week, Thomas and Corentin told you, we have a problem testing games currently. This is going to be fixed. So this is why we keep all the games in pending testing, and once we are sure that we will test all the games properly, we will launch them, hopefully before tomorrow.
Cool, yeah, I just picked up something on grass cut as well. I think there was a question in there. So yeah, definitely performing well. We want to do a case study either in the next few weeks. We'll definitely do a full case study on grass cut. It's that kind of game that we got and that definitely improved through multiple steps and a lot of A/B testing. And so it's worth going over a full live stream for it. But what's important with grass cut, just quickly, is a bit like these other games. We started from the mechanic itself. We didn't really start from the idea of wanting to, trim hedges or whatever. It didn't start with a story. It started with, what is a cool mechanic? What is something that I can repeat over and over again for days at a time, and even with very similar levels, but not get bored?
Good question from Henry Gunnar, kind of an apolitic flips question, like really. Is the hyper-casual genre is dying? This is a good question. My answer would be no, but the market is definitely getting more mature, and we see that the overall required quality for a hyper-casual game is rising up. So basically, games that are more innovative, more polished, better done, this is what now people want. Maybe, that's still theory, maybe it's because the hyper-casual gaming has seen a really big growth from the last 2 years, and so people are getting used to it, and first the game were really, really simple, but we all live that, we experience that you start playing a very simple game and then you want something a little bit more complex, and then a little bit more complex, you finish playing, I don't know, The Witcher 3 or stuff like that. So you have to do not go into the mid-core casual, too much complexity, but a little bit more elaboration and deep thinking before making your game, I think this is a way to really increase your chance to launch it.
Cool. And just picking up a question from Shamrock. Really good question there. Some top hitting games have very little meta and rewards and perks within the game. Do you need rewards and perks in a game in order to increase retention? I think it's fair to say that some of our top hitting games, looking at games like Helix, looking at games like Fireballs, they don't necessarily have that much meta. They don't have that many challenges. Those things will add a few percentage points to retention, for sure. But we can always add those in a game when we launch it. The key is that you really focus on the idea, the core mechanic, and the thing that you're going to be repeating over and over again. That's much more important than any kind of meta, skins, challenges, all that stuff. Great to have, potentially, but it doesn't add, usually, depending on the gameplay, it doesn't have a huge amount of value outcome.
Gameplay is key, brother.
Cool. Should we take a last one, or?
Yes, one last question. Let's try to find one about the content. So, do you give design, refurbished tips, or asset material suggestion today? Sorry, I cannot speak today. Do you design, refurbished tips, or asset material suggestion today? Yes, this is something we do in the videos, and sometimes when we identify a game that is really that has huge potential on the dashboard, we do that directly and we contact you if so. Maybe one last question.
Cool.
If you can find. Thank you, Shamrock. Thank you, Outbox Game. Thank you very much. There's no really other questions. So I just say, guys, we will say thank to you guys. It's always a big pleasure to be working with you. And see you soon.
Yeah, see you soon, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.